say, what a day this has been, what a rare mood I'm in, why it's almost like being a turkey. This is London, hi, enjoy.
Computer scientists, so we're both computer scientists about the same age.
Dr. Long, always ahead of the curve, wasn't she? Always ahead of the game. That's what it is. So back in 20...
Some parallels between what happened to me and what's happened to some of the other sort of high-profile cases that have been in the news lately. But before I do that, I just wanted to take a little bit of a detour into the Northern Principles. I've been around a long time. I remember all the sleaze and stuff in the 90s. I'm older than I look. And so John Major set up something called the Northern Principles that's supposed to govern, it's the principles of basically public service. It's supposed to apply to public servants, politicians, councillors, charity trustees as well.
Yeah, to Kelly J for organising, or whoever did organise, I'm not sure. Alright, Kelly J. And listen, I'll just keep mine quite short, and I think it follows on quite well from some of the horrors that we heard there from the previous speaker, because she mentioned the Nolan Principles, but I remember when quite a lot of us came to support you.
By trans rights activists, the Birmingham police didn't really care. When we went to Nottingham, and we've had to go to Nottingham far too many times, but we had to go twice, and the last time we went outside of a police station just so we could ensure that the police would be worried about damage to their building, so they would actually come and... What the hell is that? Well, it's my silly fault. But we had to stand outside of a police station in order to be protected. When we went to Manchester were good. But the Metropolitan Police in particular and the Royal Parks Police took a really load of convincing before they decided that we were worth protecting. Brighton Police, possibly the worst. On 2 occasions they've been dreadful. And they let men follow women throughout the streets of Brighton and trap them in shops, while everyone treated it like it was, it was a woman's fault, basically. Look what you did. Look what you said. It might as well be, look what you're wearing. Well, sometimes it is if you've got a nice woman t-shirt on. It's look what you were wearing. So, unfortunately, what seems to happen in the United Kingdom is there's justice that's accessible unless you have one of those vaginas. And if you have a vagina, if you're a woman, unfortunately, the 2-tier justice really works against you. And that's particularly bad if you're working class and you're a woman, because that is so bad, that pollen. I'm so sorry, everyone. That's about the worst of it. But we just have to keep taking these matters to the police. I'd particularly like somebody to sue the police force, maybe a female police officer. And the same goes for prison officers in this country who have to search men in women's prisons. So I'd like to see one of those prison officers.
Sorry, but the psychological abuse from your husband, ex-husband now, was before the Act came into force. It actually ended in 2006 when he walked out and slammed the door on us saying, "It's true, I'm a transsexual." So the police, their hands were tied and they couldn't do anything about it, but they had shown willing. The second account is much worse.
In when was lockdown? I don't know, it was a year I got fat. 2020. It was one of the years I got fat. And anyway, so there's me, I'm one of the younger people, there's a lady in a mobility scooter, there's a couple of ladies that need to take chairs because they're quite like a bit older than me, and we had 2 police vans that came either side of where we were going to talk, and the police officer says, live on camera, because why wouldn't you, women's rights are not political. Because we'd said we were meeting about women's rights, which gave us license to actually, it's you're allowed to do that even in lockdown. You're allowed to meet if your reason is political. And he said, look, women's rights aren't political, is how he said it. And I think we all laughed, which I don't think made him particularly happy. But the night before, the guy from CID had phoned and he'd said, I'm warning you not to do it. He said, I'll arrest you. And I said, oh, come on then. You tease. If you're going to come and arrest me live on a live stream, while I'm still monetized on my channel, please do. It'll be very good for me, and actually it was. It certainly funded a couple more t-shirt runs. So anyway, so they arrested me. So that's I've had 5 lots of intervention by the police in this country, and I've had lots in other countries too, like being under armed protection in New Zealand, which was quite good, but that made up for the fact, well, not really, that they didn't actually bother coming out for us at all in New Zealand until I was right at the edge of not being killed. So that was good. And then in Australia, they also let the trans activists come really close. So it's a global phenomenon of not looking after women. It's not just the United Kingdom, where there is 2-tier policing. It's pretty global in that regard. But anyway, Annie, coming. Well, if it doesn't, just you'll be chastised and banned and ostracised from all social groups. But don't worry about it. Right. Okay. Does that include knitting groups? So if you can hold your there, so you can speak as close to that as possible.
Right. Okay, doke. Hello, I'm Annie. I'm the Annie16 on Twitter, but I'm not on there very often. I'm a woman. My life experiences affirm this. I'm here today to be untoward about paedophiles. Only kidding, sorry. I sorted mine out. The last time I spoke at Let Women Speak, I spoke about being abused as a child. That abuse was dealt with years later. He was arrested, charged, and that man went to prison. He was a man from the church in Oldham, where I grew up. When I was older, around 10 years older, around the age of 18, I was still living in Oldham. We didn't have a lot. We didn't have a car. I had a paper round. I was at college, but I still had a paper round. So I used to go out socialising and then get up early the next day to go and do my paper round. I'd walk home from a night out with a friend, and maybe the last bit I might have walked by myself. One night I was walking down the main road from Oldham to Manchester. I happened to be on my own at this point, dressed with stuck-out blonde hair, black holey tights, high heels, a skin-tight skirt, as I was a punk. I was well aware of the culture differences in our cultures from the people who lived mostly on the other side of that main road. So I was walking along, minding my own business with my keys in one fist, and my hairspray ready in my inside pocket, probably because that's what I always did, just in case. A car came past slowly. There were more than 2 men in the back. There were 2 men in the front. So there was at least 5 of them. Probably Pakistani men in a Datsun. I mean, at the time, it was a joke that they liked to drive around in Datsuns. I quite like Japanese cars myself too. They drove past very slowly. They were all leaning over each other to look out of the window, having a good gawp at me while I was walking down the pavement on my own. I thought, that's not good. I watched what they did. They went a bit further down the road, and then I saw them go to turn around and come back. I didn't hesitate for a second, not 1 second. I just flew. I ran as fast as I could run in a pair of high heels and a tight skirt. I don't even know now, I didn't even know then how I ran that fast in that skirt and them shoes. but it was just something told me to run. The way I was going to run, there were 2 long stone walls. There was about 100 yards of nothing, nobody's house that I could bang on the doors of or anything. So that's why I had to run. I ran into a gateway. It was an old folks' home. It had been a big mansion. And I saw a tree. And I thought, well, I can't hide behind that tree because bits of me will stick out. So past the tree there was a bush, a big bush. So I went and hid in a bush. I thought, right, yeah, I'll get behind that. So I think I kind of went a couple of bushes down just to be certain. They drove past that gateway. They didn't come in. I heard them. I heard the car come. I heard them go past slowly. As soon as they were gone, I didn't wait. I came out and I went the other way, all the while ready to hide behind a car or in a garden or knock on someone's door. I got home that night completely unscathed. During this last year, good people who have been fighting for justice for victims for years have really come to the forefront of things. And because of this night has come back to me. This was nearly 40 years ago. This happened to me, and I've been kind of haunted by it more recently, because at the time I just thought I might get pushed about and messed about with. I didn't really think what could have happened would have happened. I don't think I did. I don't think that I actually envisaged that the worst thing that could happen to me that night would have happened to me. I don't think I thought that, but I just knew there was danger. I knew there was danger and I ran. So here I am today. But if I had become a victim, unlike the abuse that I'd suffered as a child, this abuse probably wouldn't have been dealt with, and these men probably wouldn't have gone to prison. It's unthinkable and unimaginable that something could have happened to me that night and nobody would do anything about it. And what the real victims have had, the actual victims of these men were prowling around. I saw it with my own eyes, prowling around at night in cars looking for prey, and maybe still today. I shouldn't have walked home alone, but I couldn't afford a taxi. It should be safe. Women should be safe. I'm so sorry for those victims. It's not something that any woman should have to bear. That kind of culture doesn't belong in Britain. It's the culture that's not welcome. And if you live in this country, the law should be equal and apply to all.
Two-tier. How do you like it, please? So they literally, I mean, it's unbelievable, but they literally booed my name. And what do? I simply want women to have their rights and their spaces, and I don't want children to be indoctrinated into this nonsense in schools. I don't think... Don't you boo me. I don't think that is something that the police, who police without fear or favour, should actually be booing. I think that is something that they should think, well, at least someone's doing it. It'll save us pretending. Who else would like to speak? Yes? And so this poor family, totally torn apart, because then what happens to these families, and often we forget about the siblings that are just forgotten, but the whole family becomes a victim of like a tyrant in their own home, where everyone's walking on eggshells, and often the siblings just have to kind of put up and shut up because the parents are so acutely worried about the behaviour of this one child that the whole family is hostage to this usually quite narcissistic, troubled teenager. And so he tried to raise a question about transitioning children to the politicians, the proposed politicians at the hustings in 2020, whatever it was. And the vicar who was running the hustings totally censored the question. So that, coupled with a couple of police, and then the next hustings when I was actually trying to be, pretending to try to be a politician, but with my political party, when I came out, 2 police officers sat across the cafe and watched myself and Stella radical cartoons. until I left. As if, I don't know what they thought I was going to do, like, I don't know, violence with a banana or like an ice cold latte. But they stayed there. There's this real weird thing that happens to women where our voices and our words are seen as extreme violence. And yet violence against us is not seen as violence at all. It's seen as kind of run-of-the-mill and pedestrian, as if we should anticipate and expect it just by being out. So anyway, that's my other stuff. I've got too many experiences with the police where they really haven't done their job. And you're right, Liz, it is. There are many officers, I can't imagine joining the police. I'm 45, say I join them. I'm not, I'm a lot older. I'm a 45-year-old bloke. I've been in the police force since I was 20. I can't wait for that nice little pension. Really excited about that pension. It's a nice pension if you're in. And so this poor family, totally torn apart, because then what happens to these families, and often we forget about the siblings that are just forgotten, but the whole family becomes a victim of like a tyrant in their own home, where everyone's walking on eggshells, and often the siblings just have to kind of put up and shut up because the parents are so acutely worried about the behaviour of this one child that the whole family is hostage to this usually quite narcissistic, troubled teenager. And so he tried to raise a question about transitioning children to the politicians, the proposed politicians at the hustings in 2020, whatever it was. And the vicar who was running the hustings totally censored the question. So that, coupled with a couple of police, and then the next hustings when I was actually trying to be, pretending to try to be a politician, but with my political party, when I came out, 2 police officers sat across the cafe and watched myself and Stella radical cartoons until I left. As if, I don't know what they thought I was going to do, like, I don't know, violence with a banana or like an ice cold latte. But they stayed there. There's this real weird thing that happens to women where our voices and our words are seen as extreme violence. And yet violence against us is not seen as violence at all. It's seen as kind of run-of-the-mill and pedestrian, as if we should anticipate and expect it just by being out. So anyway, that's my other stuff. I've got too many experiences with the police where they really haven't done their job. And you're right, Liz, it is. There are many officers, I can't imagine joining the police. I'm 45, say I join them. I'm not, I'm a lot older. I'm a 45-year-old bloke. I've been in the police force since I was 20. I can't wait for that nice little pension. Really excited about that pension. It's a nice pension if you're in.
Of Swansea Pride said to me that I made him feel unsafe. He was, of course, twice my size, half my age, and he actually said it happily for me into a recording that my words, that my opinions made him feel unsafe, and he pointed specifically at my T-shirt. Anyway, it turns out he is an ex-police officer as well. And he's also the regional organiser for GMV Union. And we know what the unions are like for women's rights. Anyway, the experience of the police, they came and told me to go because I was troublemaking. But what had happened was I'd asked this chap inside the Swansea Pride tent about his opinion on the verdict of the 16th of April, and I may have said men in dresses, and then a group of young transvestites and their fluffers, one of them sat in his miniskirt, freezing his balls, he must have been, even in the summer, swigging wine from a bottle, started shouting, "Fuck off, turf," at me and my little friend, she's even smaller than I. So we were naturally a bit annoyed. Then the police accused me and my little friend of harassing this group of young transvestites and their fluffers. And the policeman actually put his hands on me, which I was quite indignant about. I may even have said, "Do you realise how old I am? I've been a taxpayer for 40 years. Probably something like that. But nevertheless, they had no witness or evidence of either, but they chose to believe these young transvestites with their fluffers against two little gobby turfs maybe, but nevertheless otherwise respectable women. So we got manhandled and turfed out. I will, however, give a quick plug to the second police officer, because by then my blood was right up, so I was not going to take any nonsense, and sat outside with my flag doing effectively a one-woman protest about outside the second hall. And it was because I'd been turfed out of the hall as well. It was held in like a park and in a hall. I went outside and sat on the steps with my flag, my adult human female flag, and the police told me to move, but I was quite indignant. I said, "This is a public building. I'm a taxpayer." But this, like I said, I was in no mood to move. But this police officer was just so sweet and so charming. He did actually succeed in coaxing me down, although only I made him agree to stand with me on the pavement, which is where I stood, which is good then because we got more footage. But he realised then, when he could see the Pride attendees, I suppose not specifically trans activists because they were just attendees, but there were hundreds at the event and just one little objector. But I ended up being the star turn because I think there's a turf here, and because I was the only turf, and because the drag queens, like you can imagine, were shit, and they were trooping out to see me, and this sweet police officer, my other friend who was there, very discreetly and incognito, she could see him talking into his radio to get backup. So it was, I did feel I personally felt quite safe, even though there were hundreds having a go at me. Anyway, if you'd like to read about my adventures, which are not over yet, it's #Swansea Pride. Thank you.
Met her, and I said hello. I said hello to her son, who was disabled. And that came back to me from the police as she saw me as rude because I shouldn't have spoke to her son, because I should have known he was disabled, he wouldn't be able to answer. Well, for me, I was just smiling and saying hello to a child as I would to any other child. But that's how she perceived my behaviour. So subsequently, she reported me to the Council for Antisocial Behaviour. And there's a pattern whereby they investigated me before they even knew what I was accused of. So the council came out and interviewed me, and apparently I was making a noise. And I says, well, I leave the house at 8:30, I don't get in until 5:30, I'm in my bed by 10 o'clock. I'm not sure what noise I'm supposed to be making. It might be that my dog barks when the postman comes, so I acknowledged that, but then she settles again. So anyway, they went next door and interviewed her. They came back and they told me that the noise I was making was when I was leaving the house at 8:30 in the morning. I was shutting the door as I was leaving. So that was what was the antisocial behaviour. So obviously they didn't pursue it because they said it was ridiculous. Subsequently, she phoned social services. I got a phone call asking if I needed any help and support, and I said why. Apparently I was psychotic and running around the street naked. I says, well, not to my knowledge. So I had to explain to them, a bit of dispute between me and my neighbour.
A little bit of advice. I've already given this advice, but I'm going to give it again because you need to be very, very clear. Number one, harassment constitutes more than 2 contacts. So if you want to talk about someone, don't use their name unless you're absolutely sure that you can defend what you're saying. I'm just going to give you some advice about how not to get trapped into being criminalised, number one. So if you're going to say something about someone, even if it's true, don't say it more than twice. Trans activists, whether they're nappy-wearing fetishists, or whether they're young men with an age of anything between 13 or 30, who goes by many different names, many different accounts, who has no life whatsoever, so spends his entire life trying to provoke nice people into doing things that will constitute harassment or assault. Please just ignore these people. They really, really want you to respond. The government right now, they want you to respond. Everyone's desperate for you to respond so you can surrender some of your rights. So please do not respond. if they come up in your face repeatedly, just turn away and walk away. You're not gonna win. No matter what you do, you are not going to win. The way you win is by not giving them any more narcissist supply, which is what they're looking for. So do walk away. The most important is if the police come and want to interview you, if you want, you can just refuse and you can make them come and arrest you, and they will have to justify that arrest under the PACE guidance. So it will have to be justifiable to come into your house. Stickers can't be justifiable. They're looking for an easy win. Never ever accept a caution. Ever. Don't think that going to court and pleading guilty is ever going to do anything for you unless you have really good legal advice. Never attend a police interview without a solicitor. And say nothing. The most you can ever say is what your name is and no comment. So really, it's very, very serious. You don't say anything. You might think you're sounding reasonable, but what you'll be doing is you'll be putting yourself in a position where they can charge you. So don't do that. So that's my advice. But look, we're in a very, very dodgy situation in this country. Like I said, I've had 5 occasions to be talked to by the police. Abroad, I've had different experiences with the police also. Even in America, where you're supposed to have free speech, it doesn't include the right to be heard, even if you have the right to speak. So it's the same everywhere. Anyway, we will round off. So we came here to say, outside of New Scotland Yard, no woman has a penis, no man has a vagina, there's no such thing as non-binary, and transitioning children is profound abuse. If you can keep speaking the truth, knowing that someone might actually come and arrest you, then I promise we will win. If you can come and keep supporting the Let Women Speak movement, which arguably gives a voice to the voiceless like no other movement, then I promise we will win. And do you know why else we're going to win? Well, because I never lose.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak for the second time at a Let Women Speak meeting. The last time I spoke, I was in quite an angry state. I'd had a couple of drinks before I made the speech, and I think I was a bit slurred. But I think I certainly had cause to be angry, or not on my own behalf, but really on behalf of my wife, over circumstances of her being intimidated after defending herself in Hyde Park against 2 trans rights activists who then summoned the police, made allegations that my wife had assaulted one of them, when in fact she had defended herself, quite rightly, with what I describe as a turf umbrella. She used one of these. I won't open it today, but I think you're all familiar with how this umbrella is. It was raining, so she had perfect right to have the umbrella to protect herself from the rain, but in the event, it was useful in that she could defend herself against these 2 attackers, who then ran to the police after the attack was thwarted. They didn't accept that. The humiliation of being fended off by a woman, I think, was too much for their ego, even though they themselves claimed to be women, they were in fact men. Although I can understand in both their cases that a lot of people would say they're not men, because normal men do not behave towards women in the way that they did. I'll try and give you, as far as I can remember, the same account that I gave last time. The chronology is that this event.
It's so unsafe in there.
In the House of Lords?
Well, in the Houses of Parliament, because it needs to be restored. But the MPs, they don't want to leave. And it would cost billions and billions.
There's a woman what? A woman in a sari?